Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. Let's get started with the story of the week.
So we're going to take it back to 1994, the best year of your life, the year I was born.
Well, I was thinking about this when we were reading this story because I was like, because I remember when this was happening in the news and you were just a baby. So I don't know if do you even know about this story?
No, I actually hadn't heard about it before, but I was thinking I'm kind of jealous as a true crime fan. Like, you had a pretty good couple years in the 90s because when you were pregnant with me, the whole OJ thing was going on, right? And now this was happening, and the Menendez brothers was happening, and Scott Peterson was happening.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot going on in the news. And when this one happened, this is Susan Smith?
Yeah, Susan Smith. So
you never heard of her?
No, I've literally never heard of this case. This, of course, has many layers to it. So as I continue to read about it, I'm just like, oh, wow, this crime's crazy. Oh, wow, this is crazy. Oh, wow, this is even more crazy. So basically highlights is this 22-year-old woman named Susan Smith. She had told police that this guy had carjacked her and her two children were in the car. One of them was 2 and the other one was 14 months old. So they were like really young kids.
Toddlers.
Yeah, toddlers. So for 9 days, she's like freaking out. They're searching all these neighborhoods, going door to door. Her and her husband are on the news pleading for these kids to be returned. After 9 days, she finally admits, no, she strapped them into her car and let the car go into the river, essentially drowning them to death.
Yeah. And this was, she had these news conferences all the time. Her poor husband, because he had nothing to do with it, right? And I remember her being on there crying, but I was only, 15 years old or 16 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, this lady is full of shit. Like, she just didn't sound sincere. So I kind of felt like something was up every time I was watching these press conferences.
Yeah. So I don't know do you remember what made her finally admit it? Like, did they catch her in the act?
I don't know what made her admit it, but she said she was having an affair with a guy who was wealthy that didn't want children.
Yeah, because when I was telling you the other day, I watched that documentary about that chick, Sherry Papini, that kidnapped herself, and she wouldn't admit it. And finally, the FBI was like, we have all the information that you did it. So, say it, because we know you did it.
Yeah, I don't really remember exactly what happened, but like I said, she was just, not sincere. So I think that... And she said it was like a black dude, and it was just terrible how they went into like a black neighborhood and were searching house to house and everything, looking for somebody that didn't even exist. And
totally unnecessary on all fronts, right? And then these children lost their lives. So her lawyers during the trial, it seemed like they were trying to argue that she was having postpartum psychosis or something, which made her do this, but it didn't really matter. And I feel like if that argument was in court today, it would hold up a lot more. But in the 90s, nobody was really seeing that argument, right?
Also, and I don't know much about this, but her kid was a year and 2 months old. So I don't know what the interval is of postpartum psychosis, but I feel like that's kind of late.
Yeah, I don't...
You know what I mean? You're kind of getting back to normal with your body at that time, so I'm not sure what the time period is, but I don't... Yeah, I mean, I definitely would hold more water now, but it's not like the kid was 3 months old, you know what I mean? It was...
Yeah, so, anyway. I mean, the jury wasn't buying it either. So in 1995, she was convicted to life with the possibility of parole. So now 30 years later, in November, she's eligible for parole. But of course, that means she has to, go to the parole board and try to plead her case and everything. The ex-husband, who was the father of the kids, does not want her to get out of jail, obviously. But, she, with this potential of getting out, she's pretty confident about it. So she's trying to set up how she's going to make money. And she's trying to reel in some sugar daddies and have phone sex with people to raise money so she could do that when she's out of jail.
The criminal justice system is just everybody knows this, that it's so fucked up. But think about this. This lady killed both of her children, strapped in a car seat and drowned to death. That must have been a very great death for them, by the way.
Yeah.
Absolutely torturous, terrible, right? And then she's eligible to get out of jail. She's young.
Yeah, she's 52.
50. Yeah, she's so young. so she could get out of jail, but she wasn't young enough when it happened to not know that that was wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's not like she was 13 with 2 kids or something, and you would think, okay, maybe she's just a teenager and whatever.
I'm really surprised that she got life with the possibility of parole. I'm really surprised how confident she is she's going to get out, but obviously, like, she ain't right because of everything that went down. And, like, so for 3 years, she's been having phone sex with these people that have been giving her money. One of these guys said he has, like, a bank account with over $200,000 for her when she gets out.
This is what I wanted to say about the criminal justice system. So this lady's in jail for killing her children. Like, how is she even having access to these men? Where is she getting their phone numbers? How is she able to call them? She's calling them on our dime as taxpayers, right? All of these phone calls have been public information through the prison that she's in. But, like, how is she even meeting people? That's what I want to know.
I would really like to do an external exam on, like, relationships with people in prison, because as we see, this is really common. I mean, recently, Gypsy Rose Blanchard had got married in prison. One of the Menendez brothers has been married in prison. They get letters. Brian Koberger has fans. He gets letters, you know, like, they get letters. They're able to call. And this article that wrote up about this woman's, like, a seemingly lucrative phone sex career for the past 3 years, you know, all prison phone calls are recorded. So they have recorded versions of all these phone calls she's having with these people. And it was disturbing.
Yeah, it's just weird. I just think even if guys are messaging her in prison, how come we're allowing her to carry on relationships like that? It's just, I don't understand it. I feel like when you're in jail, it should be like you're in jail, especially when you killed children. You shouldn't be allowed to, like, do that. I don't know. You shouldn't be able to make friends. Like, I could see maybe being allowed to talk to your mom or your family or whatever, but, like, you shouldn't be able to be making new relationships and being on the phone with people all day. It's just, I feel like you give up that right when you kill your 2 kids and go to jail. It's just, I don't think it's necessary.
I mean, there's definitely going to be an argument coming in about this, that, like, they're humans and they have human rights, so they should be.
I don't care, though. You give up your rights when you do some shit sometimes.
You took 2 human lives, so therefore you should be stripped of some of your life, and being in jail is not necessarily enough. Like, so my biggest argument is, if she gets out, she's 52 years old. Like, why isn't she considered a harm to society? Like, what makes you think she's not going to do something like this again?
Well, if she was trying to kill her kids to start a new life and stuff, I mean, she's not going to have kids again, maybe.
Yeah, but what if she gets with somebody that has kids and they're, like, getting in the way? You know, like, I don't trust this at all.
I don't either. I just think there should be a blanket rule. Like, if you kill people in this, not like self-defense or a mental health issue or whatever, but if you just kill people, you go to jail for the rest of your life. End of story. Like, why do you get to have a new life after this? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, these 2 innocent children are dead. Like, she really doesn't seem all that remorseful, if I'm being honest. Like, nothing about her seemed like she feels that bad about doing it. So, like, I don't know. I made a note in the calendar, though, because I think her hearing's, like, November 4th, so I definitely want to follow up with this. I would be surprised if she got out, honestly, but
I mean,
who knows?
Everything's crazy right now, so whatever.
Exactly.
All right, let's get into celebrity news.
So last week we had talked about that camper that had died at the youth camp, and Paris Hilton has been in Congress a lot explaining her experience with these camps, and she's trying to get these bills passed that ban them and make them illegal.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just a youth camp. It's called a residential treatment facility for youth, which is just fancy words for saying that if the kid is acting up and being bad, you would send your kid to this camp. It's like something your parents have always threatened you with, like sending you to boarding school or something because you're bad. And she was a teenager and was partying a lot at 15, right? She was drinking and partying and staying out all night. But I'm kind of like, okay, well, when you're a parent of a 15-year-old, like, that's kind of your problem. It's not the kid's problem.
Yeah, so, like,
why did she still talk to her parents?
I don't know. So, like, she has a reality show called Paris in Love, and it's on Peacock. So, like, I don't think a lot of people are on top of that show, but it's actually one of my favorite reality shows ever, because when you watch her interact with her family, it's not like this typical Bravo overproduced thing we're used to. It is so uncomfortable watching this family interact with each other because they're so emotionally detached from one another. And she is clearly trying to find answers like, I wasn't that bad. Why did I go to these camps? Or like, did you ever think I was acting out because, I was raised by nannies and you were barely in my life? And Kathy Hilton is just totally, when she brings it up, she just totally glazes over it and blames her for it, which is like,
I know,
so
it's
crazy.
so outrageous. Like, she not only went to this one, she went to 4 different camps.
Yeah.
Think about a normal 15-year-old that's acting out is always acting out for a reason.
Yeah, so like,
and then like she still taught, like, I understand that the parents don't know a lot about what's going on in these camps. I've heard interviews with people that went to these camps, kids that are now adults that have went to these camps, that said how manipulative they were towards their parents. Even they would take the kids and then they would call their parents and they would say, hey, your kid might call you and say that we're locking you in a room and not letting you look out a window. So if they say that, just expect that that's going to happen, but that's not really what's happening. So then when the girl would call her dad and say that, the dad was like, yeah, they told me you were going to say this and I'm not coming to pick you up.
Or somebody's monitoring the call, so they like can't be honest about what's going on. Because think about it, if the person at the camp is watching your phone call and you say like they're hitting me, then there's going to be retaliation afterwards. Or they're not letting you call your parents at all, or your parents think you're making it up to go home.
Yeah, so she went to 4 different camps like this, and she was so abused there. I mean, when you're 15 years old, you're still a little kid. You're a little kid still. Even though you're a teenager, you're still a child. And she was physically and sexually abused to the point where she didn't even want to go through a pregnancy and carry her own kid because she was so traumatized from it, which I kind of believe her. Like, she was saying that they didn't let her look out a window for 2 years.
No, this is the thing.
What does that do to a person?
This is also why I don't think this show is so produced, because like this is a really big part of her life trying to get this legislation passed. And whenever she talks to her family about it, they get so massively uncomfortable about it. And her mom's always like, you are out of control. I don't know what you want to do. First of all, the girl was raised in a hotel in New York City. Like, nothing is normal about that. You're living in like a 5-star hotel your whole life. You're raised by nannies. You're in one of the wealthiest families in the country. Nothing was normal about her upbringing. Nobody is monitoring her behavior. What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, this is a parent issue.
Yeah, so she's going,
in my opinion.
So she's going to clubs at 15, obviously, because nobody's watching her, and she's like acting out probably. So then she gets kidnapped in the middle of the night, brought to these schools. The worst one, in her opinion, was this one in Provo, Utah, which I actually just went through. Did you drive through there on the trip?
No, I didn't go.
So the train went through Provo, and she's explaining in her documentary that this school is like in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, so like you can't leave. Even if you try to run away, you're going nowhere. It takes hours to drive there from anywhere else. So like if you leave, you're risking dying in the wilderness because there's like nowhere to go. So think about that.
The whole problem here is money, because let me tell you, if I was a little kid and I was a little kid acting up, right? My parents wouldn't have had the money to send me to a place like this, first. And second, like, I wouldn't have had money to even go to clubs or anything. Because, like, when you don't give your kids money and they don't have a job, then they can't even do stuff, right? Like, what do you do when your mom's giving you $20 for lunch for the entire week? Like, you can't go out and party and do things like that. So it's 100% a parenting issue.
No, exactly. So she went to Congress last week and was saying how she was sexually abused there. She was force-fed medication. She was ripped by her hair down hallways, stripped naked. You know, she had a really horrible experience. And this all led to her, like, persona. So she said, you know, we know her as this girl that speaks in a really high voice and looks like a doll, and you know, people think it's really weird behavior. And when you hear her real voice, she actually has a pretty deep voice when she's talking naturally. And she is attributed that she put on this persona because she was in so much pain that she like basically had to force herself to live in this alternate reality to like forget what had happened to her.
Wait, so because you know how I chronically go through my phone with the volume off, I did see that there were a couple stories that said that people were shocked by her voice. Was she talking like in her regular voice in the hearing?
Well, I don't know at the hearing. Yeah, I think she does at the hearing. But like when you watch her show, when she's talking to her husband, she's talking in like her normal voice and to her sister and stuff. But when she's like uncomfortable or doing
she's
an
like,
interview,
that's hot.
yeah,
like that.
It's like this trauma response. It's very interesting. And before she came public with all this a couple years ago, psychologists were coming out saying they thought that something might have happened to her because it was very unusual that she acted this way. So I'm interested that people were kind of like on it, but didn't really know exactly what happened.
Yeah, and she's only 43, so she's not that old that things were different back then. You know, that it wasn't.
No, so like, I don't know. I've been like really keeping an eye on this because their whole family dynamic is so beyond fascinating to me, especially Kathy Hilton. And apparently this book came out a while ago called House of Hilton that like exposed all the family's like inner deepest secrets, and they worked really hard to get that bookshelf. So like it's not that easy to find. I think people have it on eBay, but it's like hundreds of dollars, and I kind of want to get my hands on it. I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, I was thinking that's something that's like right up your alley.
Yeah, but basically she's trying to pass this thing called Stop Institutional Child Abuse Act. So she's working really hard. Like she is really taking her experience and trying to make a difference, which I can appreciate in the general celebrity culture. Like they'll talk about it, but not really pursue any further action. She is actively going to DC working with people to try to get these bills passed. So you have to respect that on some level.
Oh, I do. I think she's awesome for doing this because I wasn't even really hip to it, but when we were talking about this story weeks ago, I remember with the kid in this camp, my first thought is like, this is child abuse. Why is this not considered anything else?
Exactly.
It's just, so I'm glad, because the thing is, she could use her star power and people will actually listen to her. If this was just a regular person, they wouldn't be sitting in front of hundreds of members of Congress and stuff being able to talk about this. So it's great.
Exactly. And I even saw with that Netflix documentary that came out about another one of these school systems, they did a hearing about that, and she shows up. If they ask her to be in congressional hearings and everything, she's there. Like she's not messing around with it. So it's cool.
All right, let's get on to the next story.
God, this is like Kardashian level obnoxious to me when we talk about Tori Spelling.
If we talk about the celebrities that we always talk about who are fucking annoying, it's definitely Kardashians, and then the step below that is
Tori Spelling. Always.
She actually had another annoying article about something too that I completely forgot. I forget what it is right now, but there was another article that I looked at and was just like, oh my God. So she has her own podcast, I guess, and she's talking about all this stuff. That's why.
Yeah, so she has 5 kids with, I don't know if they're like officially divorced, but I'll just say her ex, right? Like they're broken up, her and her husband. So they have 5 kids. They range from 17 years old to 7 years old. So she was on her podcast last week talking about how she has 2 placentas in her freezer. No idea which kids they're from. And then she has another placenta of her youngest kid in her best friend's freezer. So her best friend has at least the placenta of at least a 7-year-old, like a 7-year-old placenta. And then the other 2 placentas are over a decade old. She's not sure which 2 kids they're from.
And it's great because apparently her friend has like politely been like, hey, can you pick up this placenta? It's in my freezer and it's disgusting. And she's like, oh, I'll come get it eventually. But she never has gotten it. And she keeps saying like, they say it's good luck to eat a placenta and it's healthy for you and this and that. I love when people say they say. Well, like who says that?
Yeah, who says?
Just your Hollywood friends or whatever. So she hasn't gotten rid of it, but she did say that she ate one of her kids' placentas, right?
I'm kind of calling bullshit on this because she said, quote, Dean's an amazing chef. Dean was her ex-husband. So, I mean, it was like a little truffle oil, little salt and pepper. He cooked it and it was actually really good. Like, I just don't believe this.
No, people do
No,
that.
I know people eat it. I don't believe she ate it. I just call bullshit on it. And is it also not so Hollywood to like open your freezer and somebody be like, what is that? And you're like, oh, it's Tori's placenta.
Yeah, exactly. No, I believe she did it. She's a total flake. I think that I'm way outspoken about this whole eating the placenta thing. I know that all these people say that there's health benefits, like it helps your milk supply and it helps with postpartum depression. And I just think it's total bullshit. It's cannibalism, and we're not cats. We're human beings. We're not supposed to eat our placenta. You're supposed to put it in a jar like I did.
Well, a lot of people now.
Hold on, here it is.
Guys, check out the YouTube because this crazy person.
This is Lucia's placenta.
I can't wait to
be like a normal person and just put it in a jar. Why would you eat it, you weirdo?
I'm screenshotting this and making this has to be the Instagram post for this episode today. Definitely go to YouTube and see this because you don't believe how this lady just casually pulls this giant jar of this placenta.
I have another one too.
Can I actually tell the story of when we were moving and one of the jars opened in the car on my lap and formaldehyde started splashing on my lap?
It was alcohol. It wasn't formaldehyde. Relax.
Oh my God.
It was just regular old alcohol. It didn't hurt you at all. Just relax.
You were a freak. No.
I'm not. No, she is a freak. She eats it with truffle oil. So I just put it in a jar like it's here. I'm not doing anything weird with it. It's just sitting here in a jar.
Most people today are like sending it to some place and they're getting them converted into capsules and then taking the capsules. But didn't we talk about Kourtney Kardashian did this?
I don't know. It's just so dumb. It's just the dumbest thing ever.
So
I don't if you I feel like I actually want to know if there's real scientific studies on this, or it's just like you think you don't have postpartum depression and a better milk supply because you took these pills.
I don't know.
That's all.
Well, we'll have to
And how
see.
long does it take to get the pills? Like, you have the baby, right? You have to send the thing in the mail, get the pills. They have to freeze dry it, put them in pills, send them back. I feel like that would take a couple weeks. Like, it's not even helpful.
How does one mail a placenta? Like, how would you even go about that?
I don't know, because sometimes it's even a pain in the ass to get it from the hospital. We would have, at the couple hospitals that I worked at, which is hence why I have my placentas, because they're easy as long as you say it's a religious exemption. They can't do anything about you taking it, but they're not happy about it because it puts liability on the hospital, because people like, let's say Tori Spelling, for example. Not saying this with Tori Spelling, just saying in general, because other people do this too. Let's say that a woman has some kind of a viral infection, like hepatitis C, for example, and then she brings it home and her husband or her boyfriend or her friend or whoever cooks it and eats it, and it's not cooked all the way. And now you're exposing people to viral infections, any kind of bacteria. Like it scares hospitals because they don't want people to be eating human tissue. It's cannibalism. Okay? No matter how you slice it, no matter what you say, it's cannibalism.
All right.
On to the next.
All right.
Freak accidents.
I actually have a similar story to this. I don't even know if you know this. So a 55-year-old man got stung in the right eye by a bee, which, if that doesn't sound horrible in itself, just wait, it gets so much worse. So he goes to the emergency room, gets all the workup. They think they removed the stinger and that everything will be fine. So tell everybody what happens next.
So this is like a really good lesson for anybody that ever has this happen to them. Not that it's going to happen to probably anybody that's listening right now, hopefully. But really, anytime something happens to your eye, you should always try to go to an ophthalmologist to get that taken care of if possible. We are blessed that we live right near Wills Eye Hospital in Philadelphia, but a lot of times people don't have access to an ophthalmologist, so they have to go to the emergency room. So the guy goes to the emergency room and the stinger is still in his eyeball and they pull it out. He goes home and he's having pain and he's starting to lose his vision over the next 2 days. He finally goes to Wills Eye Hospital in Philadelphia, and they put this special dye inside of his eye called fluorescein. And what it does is it lets the ophthalmologist know that the eye tissue is damaged. It turns it a certain color, like a yellowish green color. And sure enough, when they were looking at it, a piece of the broken stinger was still in the eyeball. And that's what was causing the problems. And the reason that you should go to an ophthalmologist is because they know that if you get stung by a bee, your eye will swell up and you have to do special procedures to pull it out and use special tools under special microscopes to be able to handle this correctly and not have something like this happen. Because you don't want to mess with your vision like that. It's really scary. And think about this guy had a piece of it in his eye for 2 days.
So when I want to say Lillian's age, my mom took me to the lake, and we were at Aunt Tina's lake house, and she had like rocks in the driveway, and they were like, go get your bathing suit out of the trunk. So I'm walking with my eyes closed for some reason on the rocks. Like that was going to make it hurt less to walk on the rocks without shoes. And I literally hit a beehive under the porch, and I got stung in the eye and in the arm. And I will never forget that, because it was seriously the worst pain ever, and I was crying so bad. And then
yeah, but it didn't sting you in your eyeball.
Not in my eyeball, but on my eyelid, and that was like horrible in itself. I can't fathom.
Yeah, eyelid sounds terrible. Like I don't even want to wrap my brain around the ball getting stung.
That's what I'm saying.
Just...
like my eyelid was one of the most painful. I was such a little kid. This was like over 20 years ago, and it's like a memory that is so vivid that I cannot get rid of it. And I haven't been stung by a bee since, but it was such a horrific situation, and I can't imagine it going directly into my eyeball. And then not even like you go to the hospital and think it's taken care of. Oh no, it's like really deep in there.
Yeah, and when this guy had this piece of the barb taken, or the stinger, I guess they call it, out, it looks like a barb under a microscope. It looks like a branch with a thorn coming out of it. It's just, it looks so painful to think about that piercing your delicate eyeball.
It looks absolutely horrible. And I don't know, on this article too, they had a video of like how a bee sting works, like a animation of it, and it was making me want to throw up. It was so horrible to watch.
Yeah, I actually I posted I made a post in the gross room called "Be Aware." Get it? Like be.
Wow.
And I put the photos from this case in there, because it's just really. It's funny that you could look at a foreign body that's a sliver of a hair. It's just a small thing, and just think that, oh my God, that thing is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's not like a giant knife going into your eye. It's just like this little microscopic piece of something. Ew. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't like eye stuff at all. It's so gross.
No.
All right, so this next one, we had really horrible storms over the weekend. I guess they were just going all over the Northeast, because I actually saw like where the cabin is, they were having tornado warnings, which is really unusual for up there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it always rains really bad where I live compared to your neighborhood, which I don't understand. But every time it's raining here, I'm just like, oh, this is just a normal summer day.
Yeah, I think it's because you live a little bit closer to the Delaware River. So
yeah,
you're just getting that.
It must just pick up the water. But in Maryland, a tree had fallen during one of these horrible storms. Maryland's not that far from where we live, only about an hour and a half. But a tree had fallen down on a live power line and landed on a metal fence. So let's think about new fear unlocked. This metal fence gets electrified because the live power line had fallen on it, which is something I would never think of. I don't know if you would think about that.
I do think of that. If I see any wire anywhere, I walk on the complete opposite side of the street, because I don't know if it's live. I don't anything, even if it's a cable cord coming, because all of our wires, at least where we live, are all above us. So they come down during storms. Sometimes you just see one from time to time. And there was one that was laying down on the street for a couple weeks across the street from the kids' school.
I don't even know nice.
I know. It's probably nothing. You assume, oh, this must be nothing because it's been sitting here for a couple weeks. But like the kids would walk to the car and I'd be like, go away from that. Go 100%. Like, get away from that. I just freak out because of stories like this. You just think, oh, if that thing is live, like it'll just hurt us. And I don't know.
So power line falls on this fence, which is like a metal fence that goes behind several different properties. So then this dog is just like outside doing its business and comes close to the fence and gets electrocuted. The owner sees this all go down and runs out to help the dog, and then also gets electrocuted. They're both dead.
Yeah, it's nuts, but it is a good reminder, because when it starts thundering, especially, they say that when I was playing softball as a kid, or when I would go to the public pool or something, like as soon as it thunders, you have to get out and go indoors. And there's really, the same could be said for pets. There's no reason that there should even be a dog outside during a thunderstorm that has lightning like this. So it's easily avoidable situation. That's one of the reasons because of lightning strikes, obviously, it could be a direct strike, or in this case, it was an indirect strike, but still caused the death of the guy. I mean, it's sad for the dog, but like a human life was lost too.
Yeah.
Over this.
No, totally. It's just really sad. I don't know. I mean, this is always why these stories are under freak accidents. Like, I would never be like, oh, there's a down power line 5 houses down. Let me not go near the fence. Like, I wouldn't even think about it. So it's just...
Yeah, if you see a down power line, don't go anywhere near it. Or unless, obviously, like, if your child is there, then you do. Yeah. But we hear this all the time. And especially when it's raining out, too. The water conducts the electricity, too. So it's just dangerous.
All right, next let's get into baseball stadiums, because this is something I'm surprised this is not happening more frequently. So we go to the baseball stadium like every week or every 2 weeks, right? And it's always, the Phillies are killing it right now, which like I'm proud to gloat about that. But because of that, most of the games have been sold out, which is like over 40,000 people. So with that, all these people are always packing on the staircases and the escalators. So at a Brewers game last week, there was like all these people after the game trying to go home and leave on the escalators, and they are jamming as many people as possible on them. And then all of a sudden, this escalator has a malfunction and starts like speeding up and causing all these people to like fall down on top of each other, fall off the escalator, and 11 people got injured.
Yeah, it's really scary because I didn't even know escalators could go faster than they go. I mean, I guess anything could happen, but what would be the point for that function to even exist?
Well, it might not be like a function, so they're trying to figure out exactly what went wrong. Like, everybody seems pretty stumped by this, so I don't think this is a normal function.
I've never heard of that before. When I first read the article, I don't know why I just like escalator went over my head, and I just assumed all those people getting hurt at once was the elevator like dropping or something, because that makes more sense. There's elevator injuries and the elevators break all the time. But we just were there last week, and to go, unless you want to walk up the ramp, which we do sometimes, unless it's like 100 degrees out and, we just don't feel like doing it. We're trying to get to our seat faster. There's always a line of hundreds of people to get onto the escalator. And there is a guy that's standing there that counts how many people are going up and then stops it.
Yeah, but still,
so there has to be some kind of weight restrictions.
Still think about it though. Like, there's probably at a given time on the really big escalators 50 plus people on them at one time.
Oh yeah, but I mean, they clearly could accommodate that. It happens all the time. I mean, we never heard of anything like that happening. And I guarantee you, I was thinking that like next time we go to the Phillies game, there's going to be like some kind of the MLB is going to put like some kind of restrictions out about how many people can go on because of that.
Oh my God.
Because that could have been like serious, because at least the escalator that we go on goes from the first to the second tier, but it's a large distance. It's not like one that you would see in the mall. It's like double the size of the one at the mall. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think they were able to prevent more injuries because it seemed like the person like manning it at the bottom hit the emergency stop button as soon as it started happening.
Well, we have guys, Santa Claus that we see every time that we go. There's a guy that works at our escalator that looks exactly like Santa Claus, and he always wears red for Phillies. So, and he's been there for years, but like that's why they're there, probably in case something happens like that they're able to do that. But just being up that high, thinking about falling off of the side of it or something or down it scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, 100%. Because what are you going to do if it starts moving really fast and you're like trampling other people? It's scary.
Yes,
well,
it really is.
The elevator has been closed until investigation has been done.
Escalator.
Sorry. Escalator has been closed until they figure out what happened, because obviously they don't want to risk it again. So you might be slightly inconvenient.
But like, what are they going to do to get all those people upstairs? Everybody's not going to walk up the steps.
Well, that one's just going to have to be out of commission.
Yeah.
Well,
is there only one at ours, or there's one on the other side?
No, there's one on the other side.
Oh, okay.
I think there has to be because of like emergency exits and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to use escalators during an emergency.
Well, you know what I'm trying to say. There can't just be like one that goes up and down. There has to be multiple sets of stairs and everything. So people are either going to have to walk. That's what sucks. It was like on the highest level of the ballpark too. So people that have seats up there are going to have to walk up all those steps.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah. All right. So next, a man had gone to the hospital saying his nose was bleeding for a couple of days and he felt movement up there. Don't you think if your nose is bleeding for like a couple hours, you would go? Isn't that unusual in itself?
No, I don't think so. I think some people, like Lucia, has nosebleeds all the time. And
yeah, but did they
last? We know Gabe overreacts to them. We don't. Actually, we should tell this story that one time. So we were in Washington, D.C. on like a little mini trip. And we were sitting around watching a movie. We were watching some lame movie. Oh, we were watching National Treasure, remember?
Yes.
And then Lucia had went in the other room and she was like, Mom. She made this noise of like, my nose is bleeding. And she came out of the room and she had a towel under her nose. And it was a lot of blood.
Gabe pushes off the couch like the mom and Meet the Parents diving into the pool.
Yes, we were like, you know that part in Meet the Parents when the mom jumps in the pool and he's like, no, he didn't remember. Then we found a video of it. We kept sending it to him. We were like, it was so ridiculous. We're like, relax, dude. She's just having a nosebleed. Like,
yeah, it was acting like so she cut her hand off or something. Like her nose is bleeding. Chill out.
So anyway, so she'll come down to me every once in a while and just say like, I'm having a nosebleed. And I think there's some people that just have them a lot that they kind of don't think anything of it.
But they don't last for hours.
No, they don't. But listen, like there's more parts to this story that I wouldn't do if I was this guy either. So people do what they're going to do. Like, all right, what are you going to do?
Tell everyone what was causing it.
All right. So this guy had apparently been taking a bath or a shower, I guess, in a waterfall. And he went into the hospital and they went up inside his nose. And of course, they found a leech up there.
Yeah, typical finding when you're just like looking into a patient.
Well, I think when people go into natural water especially to take a bath, I mean, people do it, especially even people do it if they're hiking or anything like that. You get leeches on the outside of your body. It's kind of a normal thing that could happen. But for it to get inside of your body is not commonly seen in medicine. And leeches, they can kill you, actually.
Aren't they pretty big?
They can get big when they're engorged with blood, but they not only, if you had a lot of them on you, they could make you anemic. But on top of that, they have saliva that like numbs the area of where they're sucking. And that could cause issues with the way that your blood clots and everything. And the grossest part really is that they carry disease. Like they can have HIV and hepatitis B in their bodies for like 5 months.
Can't you go to some nail salons and get some like leech treatment on your feet?
Yeah, I mean they do leech therapy. I actually have a bunch of leech stuff coming up in the gross room that I have set aside and bookmarks of really good pictures and stories. But yeah, they do leech therapy. They do it sometimes. Like if you have gangrene, they do it to clean out the wound. They do it in hospitals under, supervision. And they work well at cleaning out good wounds and really like pulling blood to the source to help it heal. Like especially when you have gangrene and you have a hard time with oxygen getting to a part of your body, it like pulls oxygenated blood to the source to help it heal. But they're just it grosses me out, to think that the thing was up inside his nose because it could have went into his brain.
Like,
I mean, your nose is like a direct access to your brain.
I'm like, dude, you didn't feel that thing going up there? Like
he might not have felt it going up there, but he felt it moving around.
Ugh.
Which just freaks me out. But listen, like if this guy was taking a bath in a waterfall, like chances are he wasn't near any kind of like civilized medicine. You know what I mean? Like maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. He could have been in a super low socioeconomic area that the nearest hospital was 12 hours away. I don't know.
Well, it seems like the doctors were able to successfully get it out. So
yeah,
that's good.
And he's fine.
Yeah, he's okay. This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
Guys, you have to join the gross room, especially because of my upcoming post with leeches, because they are so gnarly. And one of the stories is so outrageous. I can't even explain it to you. You just think like, how the hell does this shit happen to humans? And I always have had questions my entire life about this kind of stuff. Like, you hear stories all the time and you just want to know what all this looks like. So if you have the same kind of curiosity that I do and all the members of the gross room do, definitely check it out, because we always have pictures to go with these crazy stories.
Yeah, and this week too, we did the 4th of July murder, so that was a really interesting case. It's like frustrating reading some of these cases and getting the details, and I don't want to spoil the end of it, but it was definitely a frustrating one to write up for me. And we just have all these other cases with 4th of July tomorrow. There's a bunch of fireworks stuff, so that's definitely interesting to see stuff people do. So you can visit thegrossroom.com for more info and to sign up.
Join today. All right, let's get into some true crime.
All right, so we talk a lot about hot car deaths on here, but this is like one of the most unusual ones I've ever heard, right?
Yeah, I think it is too.
So this lady brought her 8-year-old to work with her, and I don't know if she wasn't allowed to bring the kid in or she didn't want to bring the kid in, but she thought it was a good idea to leave this 8-year-old alone in the car, which it's never okay to leave a child alone in the car in general, so I don't know what was going on with that. And then on top of it, it's like a 94-degree day, but she decides, I'm going to turn the air conditioning on, so this won't be a problem, and the kid will text me every couple minutes or so, and I'll check in. That's how I'll check in. So after this lady doesn't hear from the kid for an hour and a half, which is a really long time to not hear from the kid that's in the parking lot, she goes out and then sees the kid's unresponsive and foaming at the mouth, breaks through the car with a hammer, realizes the air conditioning's not on anymore, and starts freaking out and drives to the hospital. She doesn't get all the way to the hospital before she pulls over, calls 911. They come and see the kid, and then she's finally brought to the hospital, and then she's pronounced dead.
This is like really an upsetting story, actually. I feel like it's more upsetting than the typical grandfather leaving the kid in the car, because I think there's a lot that goes on with this story, especially because I was a single mom. I think this lady's probably a single mom, and it's the summer. Her kid's not in school. Camp is expensive. So
Yeah.
A lot of people can't afford to send their kid to camp. And she's got this kid, and she might still have to go to work to pay for the rent and to pay for food. And it doesn't say where she was working, but if she worked
worked at Amazon.
Okay, so you can't have a child in Amazon.
Yeah.
Right?
Like it was like an Amazon warehouse facility.
Yeah, so she couldn't bring the kid to work with her. Like, I mean, think about this. How many times did I bring you to work with me every day in the summer because I didn't have anyone to watch you? Like,
Yeah.
It's just, that's what happens. I mean, I would have found something else, but I didn't have a couple $1,000s laying around to pay for camp or to pay for somebody to babysit you every day when you weren't in school. So she brings the kid to work, leaves the kid in the car, probably with their iPad or a phone or something, so they were entertained all day, and left the air conditioning on thinking that the kid would be safe. It's so crazy, because last week I was just like, does this ever happen to women? And then sure enough, this news story popped up. And I thought, let me read about this, because there has to be more to the story, because usually women don't forget their kid in the car, and she didn't.
Well, yeah, it's just really weird because she like knowingly set up the situation, and then she was telling the police that she thinks the kid turned the air conditioning off because she was too cold. But then I started thinking about how my car automatically turns off after an hour. And let's say, for example, that this was you in your car, right? And your car turned off after an hour. Like, this kid's Lucia's age. Would Lucia know how to restart a vehicle? To turn it back on?
It could have been that, no, but at the same time too, it could have ran out of gas.
Yeah, like,
I mean, like, how long was the kid out there?
I don't think it ran out of gas because the mom like was driving around after trying to run her to the hospital. But
oh, okay, so yeah, I mean, there's all different things that could happen, but I don't think that there's anything like shady about this story that the mom at all. I just think that it was a desperation thing, and she just didn't think about it. But you just have to keep in mind that there are people that don't have what we have, as far as like there's always a friend that could do this, or a family member, and it's kind of like a really shitty situation that a lot of people go through, especially when they use school not only for education for their kids, but like as a babysitter while they go to work.
But go back to what you said earlier too about when you were raising me. So like, what if you brought, like, I remember going to college classes and stuff with you and like going to work with you. Like, what would have happened if your employer was like, she can't be here, you have to leave, and we're not paying you for the day?
I would have borrowed money off of somebody and figured out to send you to camp or something. I don't know.
No, but I'm saying like that's not an option for everybody. So like this seems like a pure act of desperation. Like you could do nothing else, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, sometimes you hear stories about this that like the parents leave the kids in the car to go in the casino or something.
Yeah.
Like she was going to work. Do you think she wanted to be at work at the Amazon warehouse? No. Like,
yeah. So like,
but maybe even she had a babysitter and last minute the babysitter fell through. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just trying to talk about how terrible of a situation this is all around. And an 8-year-old, like Lucia's 9, so she was just 8, right? She probably, I don't know how she didn't even think to just open the door and get out of the car.
I don't know. I mean, a 94-degree day is like really hot. Like I think it just happened so fast that like the kid might not even realize.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened, because I just feel like just knowing how Lucia is and stuff, I feel like she would call me and say, "Hey, the air turned off, or it's too hot." But maybe the kid was cold and took a nap even. And then just it went down fast.
That's what,
and didn't realize it because she was sleeping. I don't know.
That's like kind of what I'm thinking. Like she fell asleep or something, and it just, I don't know. Like that's the only reason I could see this going down. And like, not to be like this, but like Amazon can't have like childcare at these facilities.
Well, that's. I don't know what the solution is, because it's not Amazon's a private company. It's not their problem.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's their
then
problem.
Just hire someone that doesn't have kids, and then you don't want it.
I'm not saying like it's their fault this happened. I'm just saying like with all their resources and everything, like I don't know. I
feel like most places are not okay with you bringing your kid to work.
No.
I really lucked out with it being able to bring you to the hospital, and you were a little bit older, and I was able to sign you up as a volunteer.
Well,
so
you could also kind of hide me in your office. So like that was kind of a different situation.
And they were kind of like okay with that. But I worked in the lab. Like if I worked as a nurse on the floor, I wouldn't be able to bring you to the hospital that. So this is what I'm saying. Like it's just I feel like it happens to a lot of people, and we're lucky in our town that we have a camp at least for a couple hours a day that's like pretty affordable. But it's only for 3 hours a day. So who could do that when they're working a normal full-time job?
Exactly.
I mean, she might be from out of the area and not know anyone around here to watch her kid. It's just so terrible. It's so sad. I mean, the kid's like in what, 2nd grade? It's terrible.
Yeah, and I don't think based on her charge, so she was charged with involuntary manslaughter. I don't think based on that they think she intentionally did it, but like somebody has to be responsible for it happening. So,
and it just yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. There's a lot of times when this happens that, like with that one dad, that you're just like, good, he should go to jail. He's a scumbag. And like, I feel like this mom is probably really devastated. And on top of that, it was like kind of just circumstantial.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this next one makes me really sick as well, because I could just so easily see us being in this position. So last Friday around 4:30 p.m., this chick who's my age went to just go get her nails done. This is something we do every couple weeks. She was going to a wedding the next day. She was just trying to, like do her thing. So she was an NYPD cop, and she was getting her nails done for the wedding of another police officer. I believe her husband was also a police officer. So she's in this nail salon, which was in a strip mall, and a bunch of other customers or employees are there as well. A Friday afternoon night at the nail salon is like,
oh, it's busy.
Popping.
Yeah,
it's really busy. So at the same time she's getting her nails done in this parking lot of the strip mall, this guy is seen like driving around like crazy. He's yelling at people. this woman was seen screaming at him because he almost hit her in the parking lot. And then within seconds of that lady screaming at him, he plows the car through the nail salon.
Did they say he did it on purpose, or it was because I know that he was drunk, but was it just it didn't aim for a parking spot right, or did he intentionally try to hurt people?
I'm not really sure. Like it's seeming like that he was just driving around acting totally insane. Just I don't know.
He had 18 beers.
That's outrageous.
It is. It's so scary to think that somebody that drank something like that would get into a car and drive. It's so, I don't know how you fix this problem. I don't know how you prevent something like this from happening. He killed 4 people.
So 4 people are dead. 9 other people are injured. One of them was a 12-year-old girl, probably there with her mother, right? So like you have a kid just there trying to have a good time. And like these people have lost their lives for no reason. Everybody's families are devastated, obviously. Oh, shocker, this guy had a DWI before.
Yeah. Well, and what? Like how? The thing is did he have a license? Was it taken away?
It was taken away but I think temporarily.
Yeah, but even if it was, it doesn't matter. It's a piece of paper.
The punishment
it doesn't matter.
Is not enough. Like, I am sorry.
No.
We are talking about this every week. It is just not enough.
It really isn't.
Because now, what's happened now? He killed 4 people. What's he going to go to jail for, like 3 years? Like, that's what I foresee happening, right? Because even when people kill people when they're drunk driving, I feel like the punishment is less severe than if you have a first-degree murder charge.
And it's like so this woman that got killed, the cop, she's just got married.
Yeah, she's exactly in my position. She just got married last year. She's my age.
And then the other 3 people that got killed were employees of the nail salon. Typically, a lot of times they hire people that are their friends and relatives. So this business is having a loss of 3 of their not just employees, but possibly family members or friends as well. And like it's like, oh, this guy just looks I can't stand his face in the picture of the article. Like I just have a specific like distaste for people that drive drunk, and I mean it's just the most selfish thing you could do. I just don't. You sit here and you hear about this stuff all the time and you're like, what could we have done to prevent this? I don't know. Because like if you're in a house with a car that has keys, how do you prevent someone like this from getting in the car?
You can't in all cases.
You can't.
There's nothing you can do about it. Like you could try to monitor somebody, and like if he was at a bar drinking this much, the bar has some liability as well for over serving. So you have to think about that. I mean, I don't know for a fact if he was out. He could have very well been at home and drank that much and went out.
If he drank 18 beers at a bar, it would cost a lot of money, probably.
Believe me, alcoholics have the money when they want to have the money. So I worked in a bar for a long time, and you would not believe the amount of money spent. I mean, we had this one lady come in every single day for happy hour, and she spent over $100 just on drinks every single day. Think about that.
Well, whatever. I mean, this guy's just like such a scumbag, and I just feel another story. I just feel completely terrible, totally senseless. Didn't have to happen. Innocent people. It is always people that are innocent getting killed, and the drunk drivers are surviving. Always.
Yes, all the time.
It's out of control. Like it doesn't even make any sense to me.
No, it's disgusting. It really is.
All right, let's get into some medical news.
Would you ever take medical advice from a television show, let alone a cartoon?
Which cartoon?
South Park.
Oh yeah, South Park is pretty like genius sometimes, honestly. Like that show came out when I was 17 years old or something. And it's very well written, and it's written smart. It's written smart. It's very I don't watch it now. I haven't watched it, but I see clips from it from time to time, and I'm like, these guys are geniuses with comedy sometimes.
Well, those same people, I'm not like my husband's going to be rolling his eyes at this. I'm not into cartoons at all. Like, shocker. I'm a fun sucker. I know. I suck. Whatever. Like,
you don't go outside.
I don't go outside, and I
don't
like cartoons. So like he watches it, and I'm just like not interested in it at all. But they, the creators of it wrote this musical called The Book of Mormon, which is like a South Park version of explaining what Mormonism is, and it's like one of the most genius things I've ever seen in my life. So I do have respect for their writing. It is really good. But in this case, this doctor is suggesting that this one special South Park did could be extremely helpful to medical students. So explain why.
So it's called The End of Obesity Special, and it seems like it's about people, like what's going on in healthcare right now in the modern world, which is all of these people have obesity and they go to the doctor and they want to get Ozempic, and they can't get Ozempic because everybody wants it, even though it seems like it's pretty easy to make and it's very inexpensive to make. It's very expensive in this country to get it. It's always sold out. And they say, oh, well, we're going to prescribe to you instead Lizzo. So Lizzo did a TikTok or Instagram video because obviously like people make fun of her and stuff all the time. So she was like, so my people came to me and said that I'm in an episode about obesity for South Park. And she was like scared to death to watch it because, you know, it will rip her apart. And she watched it and she actually wasn't like super offended by it because they were saying, oh, we're going to give you this prescription for Lizzo. You're going to take it and you're actually going to feel good about your body and you're not going to feel like you need to take these drugs anymore. And it just was kind of a play on how Ozempic somehow costs so much money here in America, where in other countries it's not that much money or hard to get as it is here. And how American healthcare is just terrible. So,
well, what I also thought was genius of this episode was that they are saying, like, isn't it ironic that America has the biggest obesity problem, but the drugs are the most expensive? So, like, you're causing this problem, and it's like clearly something's happening here that makes this such a problem in this country specifically, and then you're gonna skyrocket the price of the meds to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a problem they created that now they're trying to act like they're doing something to fix it, but they created it. And you could see why this person is saying, oh, they should let all medical students see this, because it is a pretty accurate description of what's going on in America as far as healthcare goes.
Yeah, so there was a quote actually I pulled from Kyle that said, we have sugar companies, pharmaceutical companies, and insurance companies all just trying to figure out how to make money off our fucking health. It isn't fair to put the blame on anyone for their weight, which, like, how crazy that this, like, cartoon that people think is so ridiculous is making the most valid points about our healthcare system.
They have that, but this is why I'm saying that that's written very well, because they have this with all different topics. They just kind of like put these lessons in, and they've been doing that since I was a kid, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I think it's pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so this next one I consulted my tattoo artist friend Rachel Shelley about, and it's a little controversial with the people in her shop, so I'll get into that when we start talking about it. But basically, like, so many people have tattoos. Obviously, we both have tattoos. I'm sure everybody that listens knows that. So they're saying about 32% of Americans have at least one tattoo, with 22% having two or more. I mean, that's a lot of people that have them. So now over a third of 75 tattoo and permanent makeup inks from popular brands were tested and showed in this new study that a lot of them have bacteria.
Yeah, so this is when you get a tattoo, it's a pretty picture that you get put on your body, but I always say this, that it's kind of a medical procedure. You're giving yourself a very deep abrasion all the way into the dermis, and when you have a needle that is puncturing in and out of your skin, it could carry in what it's carrying the ink in, but it also could carry in bacteria. And these inks were found to have both aerobic, which means that these bacteria need oxygen, so they would live on the surface of the skin and they need oxygen to survive. But the more alarming ones that they found were the anaerobic ones that don't require oxygen. So if these bacteria are getting injected into the dermis where there's no oxygen down there, they're able to grow, and it's deep in the skin, and it could cause serious bacterial infections of the skin. Normally, when a person gets a tattoo, the most common complication is an allergic reaction to the ink or some kind of immune response to the ink. But they're seeing an increase in bacterial infections, so they're trying to figure out, like, is this just because of poor hygiene or poor application from the tattoo artists that are not cleaning properly in between. For example, I always thought it was weird that when you get tattooed that they use a regular paper towel off of the shelf to wipe because that's not sterile, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to get bacteria anyway because your skin has bacteria on it normally. And do they ever use an antiseptic to clean your skin off, really? Not a good, whatever that green soap shit is. I don't even know what that is, but
yeah,
they definitely don't use what they would use to do a medical procedure. So they're not sterilizing the skin first.
Yeah. So I sent this to her this morning because I was like, I want to look out for my friend and make sure she's like not using these products, right? And she was like, I find it really suspicious that they're not listing these brands that they're allegedly testing because like I want to know as a tattoo artist if the inks I'm using are affected by this, right? And then she asked everybody she worked with at the shop and they were just like, this is a conspiracy theory and there's so much alcohol in most of these inks that like they just find it hard to believe. But I was interested from a scientific standpoint, like what you had to say about it, because I'm asking them on their front as being the people actually using these products and they're hearing nothing about this. So,
well, I just look at it as being, if you were going to go, let's say you were going to go get a mole removed, a benign mole even. You're going to go to the dermatologist and get it removed. They're not going to go and first they're going to sterilize your skin like you would get before surgery, right?
Yeah.
And then when they're doing it, if you started bleeding, they wouldn't take a paper towel off of the shelf and start wiping. So that you've broken the sterile environment, right?
Yeah.
So all we can say is that bacterial infections are increasing and they're trying to find out why. So I think it's a combination of things. Like these inks aren't FDA approved.
Yeah.
So you could have all the faith in these products that you want. However, you don't know what's in it. That's the thing. Like you think, okay, this is a company I get for all the time.
Because the companies can really just put whatever they want.
They can put whatever the fuck they want in it. There's no regulations because it's the same regulations as makeup, and you can get makeup off of Amazon right now that has lead in it from China. Like,
yeah.
there's no regulations. So just because the company is saying that it's sterile and they put a little plastic wrapper on it, you don't even know, like nobody's monitoring them to package these things to even make sure they're putting them in sterile bottles. And I'm like 100% know how this works because I worked in microbiology for a while. And it's very hard to just work in a sterile environment because everything you touch has bacteria on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you just have to think like, are the people that are packing these inks, do they know sterile techniques? I don't know.
I mean,
are their machines regulated? No, because it's not regulated, so they could just do whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing these studies and everything with the inks, but like, are they doing the full-blown investigation of like going to where they're being manufactured and looking into everything else too? So I'm just so interested.
No, because it's not regulated.
Yeah.
Because if you were making some kind of, if you were, for example, in the hospital, you would use like sterile saline on patients, right? In their open wounds and things like that. There's FDA regulations as to those factories, how they put them in the bottles, how they, expiration dates, this and that. All of that stuff doesn't happen with tattoo inks. So, I mean, listen, like anything could be, like, if you want to say it's a conspiracy, like what's the conspiracy? They're trying to do what? Like, I just want to know, like...
No, like, her theory was that they bought a bunch of bottles off of Amazon, like you're saying, with makeup and tested them and are putting this out there. Because, like, all this stuff's apparently coming out in Europe where, like, they've proven that all these agencies are putting out these, like, quote-unquote studies that tattoos are horrible for your health and everything when it's, like, these super religious organizations backing them because they don't want people getting them anymore.
Yeah, I don't know who did this study in particular, so I could look into it more to see if they do name the brands in the study, because this what we're reading right now is just an article about the study, but the actual study might have the brands listed.
Yeah.
There might also be a thing that because of slander and stuff, they might, I don't know what the rules are as far as outing companies that do this, but I just think that when it boils down to it, the emergency room visits or stuff, there's an increase in bacterial infections. So they're just trying to see why.
Yeah, totally.
Right? You've had people getting tattooed forever. So like, why is it getting worse now? Yes, it's because more people are getting tattooed than ever before. But I still think that even though the numbers are increasing, they're still saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was interesting because, like, we come in from this side reading this report and this study, and I was like, I have to hear a first-hand account.
No, I mean, I don't blame Rachel. My first question would be like, what brand? Because I'm not going to use it anymore, right?
That's exactly what she was, like, freaking out about because she's like, I want to know what the first thing she was like
and
is why don't they last
every single
the
tattoo
brands?
artist that's listening right now does too. And every person that gets tattoos wants to know too. But like... I don't know why it's not listed. It might just not be listed in this particular article, but I'm going to find it. So
yeah, especially
I'll
because
keep you posted.
If this is a serious crisis, we should be letting people know so it doesn't continue to happen.
But I think the bigger problem here is like if all these people are getting tattoos, they should regulate the tattooing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it's not FDA.
And it's not just for bacterial, it's for the metals. That's the most important thing. The allergens, things like that.
Yeah.
Like these things you should be aware because you're permanently injecting that under your skin for the rest of your life. You can't get it out unless you get... I don't even know if a laser tattoo removal is considered a full removal of a tattoo. You have to excise the skin.
Yeah, because tattoos, and in your one lecture you had before, right? You talked about how tattoos go 7 layers deep in the skin. Is that right?
They go deep into the skin. They go in the dermis, which is below the epidermis or the layer that you see. They go deep. And even with laser removal, I'm not sure that every single pigment particle is removed in case you are having some kind of terrible allergic reaction or something. So just to think like the only way that people could get a tattoo fully removed, like if it was causing their body to freak out, is to have it excised, then they definitely should regulate the stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't...
And the procedure could be a little bit tighter too.
I don't know why it's not... the inks aren't regulated. I mean, I just think that's ridiculous. Tattooing's been around forever, and it's been increasing in popularity for decades. It's not like just in the last 5 years everybody has one. It's been really popular since for the last 30, 40 years. More and more people have been getting them. So I don't know. It's definitely interesting. So on our last episode, which was 6 shocking stories, I have to say that so slow because it's like such a tongue twister for me. We were talking about a lot of like unusual sex practices or ones that maybe ended up in wrong situations. So I was surprised to see that Gen Z is really into the kink of strangling during sex.
So Gen Z is kids born between, so this is after you. So you're millennial?
I'm like the very end of millennial.
So Gen Z is, it says 1997 to 2012, which makes them between 12 and 27 years old. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, that's right.
So the study was conducted at the University of Melbourne Law School as well as Queensland and revealed that 57% of the participants, how many were studied? Wasn't it like 40, like a significant amount of people that they studied?
Yeah, it was like over 4,000 people.
Over 4,000, yeah. So 57% of them, so over 2,000 people said that they had been strangled. And
during
over
sex at least once.
During sex at least once. And over 50% said that they had strangled someone during sex.
Well, why don't you explain like why would somebody do this? Like what makes it
Because when you cut off oxygen to your brain, it enhances an orgasm. That's like a known fact.
But this can be really dangerous though, right?
Yeah. Well, it could kill you. And the thing is that there's no safe way to do it. And listen, like the article talks about vanilla sex and like boring sex, right? And I don't want to sound like that right now, but like if you cut off oxygen to your brain, like it's just, why would you ever want to cut off oxygen to your brain for any reason? Because there's all different levels that people can tolerate. And when you have someone that's not a professional doing it, especially like they don't understand how much is too much. You can get permanent brain damage. Like, why would you risk that?
Well, most famously, the actor David Carradine from Kill Bill had died doing this called autoerotic asphyxiation, where wasn't he like choking himself with a rope while he was jerking off, and then it just went too far and he died?
Yeah, so what we're talking about, sex with people, is called erotic asphyxiation, and autoerotic is when you're doing it by yourself.
Seems more dangerous to be doing it by yourself.
Well, it's just dangerous, and I guess it is, because like if you nod out, hopefully when you're having sex with another person, that they realize that, you know, they've done too much, and you're there with somebody monitoring it. Whereas when you're by yourself, it's kind of like whatever. But that's actually a really good celebrity death dissection that we did in the gross room on David Carradine, and shows a lot of different cases of autoerotic asphyxiation, and it's. I understand why people do it. Like, I get it, but it's just, no matter what anybody says, there's not a safe way to do it. So every time you're doing it, you are taking a risk.
Well, in general, this seems to be a problem because this like sexpert on this article seemed to suggest that all the people she interviewed seemed like it wasn't quote unquote good sex unless you left the encounter with like a bruising or scrapes or like pain. So,
which is interesting, because in any other circumstance that would be considered like partner abuse.
Yeah, exactly.
But then they said like throw a mattress underneath of you, and then all of a sudden it's like a sexual satisfying thing or whatever, you know?
Yes, I mean it's really interesting to me that their generation in particular, who is like mass complainers about everything and calling people out, and
well, that's their outlet, is that like that they do that because they are mass complainers. So there must be something with mass complaining and wanting to get choked out while you're having sex.
So I guess just be safe when you're when you're doing your thing. So, all right. So this is a topic we've covered like more privately because, you know, it gets like weird. But last year, the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia, which explain what this museum is for everybody.
Well, it used to be the most amazing museum in the world. It's been there for a really long time, and they have actual real-life specimens of pathology on display in jars or mummified or skeletons that show what it looks like when a person has a pathology. So, you know, in the gross room and stuff, we show photographs of it, and we try to educate that way. But this museum, they would educate with the actual specimen. You walk through the museum, it explains to you what it is, and it was really great for a long time for people, especially people that had odd and unusual diseases or conditions, that they can go to this museum and see something and say, hey, that looks like something I had. Or it's just a lot of historical things. They had this whole drawer of foreign bodies that you would see that people swallowed by accident. And just some of them were really interesting to see just from a long time ago. Like a woman would put a hairpin in her mouth and swallow it by accident or something. But some of the items were just items that you wouldn't even use today. So it's just cool from a historical perspective. They had the liver of Chang and Eng, the famous conjoined twins. Just lots of different unusual medical things that we've heard of, but you could actually see it. And it just was such an awesome museum.
Yeah, so in 2022, they changed leadership behind the scenes, and then last year stuff really started to change. So one day, they used to have this YouTube channel that had like videos of all their exhibitions and specimens and stuff, and one day this YouTube channel just disappears. And people that were fans of the museums were like, what the fuck happened to this? This was one of the most awesome things. I loved watching the videos.
And this was a lot, yes, and it was a lot of work. I know the curator, she put a lot of work into making these videos, interviewing people that actually had donated their specimens to the museum. And they had a lot of subscribers, and a lot of people were getting educated from it. And then they decided to just turn it off one day.
So after the YouTube channel goes away, then, you know, stuff starts rolling out that there's questionable actions, like they might close the museum in general. And, you know, it's all because of the ethics of how these specimens were sourced.
Well, I don't think that they ever said they were going to close the museum. They were just going to take all the human specimens out of the museum.
Well, you might as well close the museum.
Exactly.
That is the museum.
Nobody's going to want to go. Like, sorry. Yeah. That's why everybody goes, FYI.
Yeah, so they were basically saying they were going to remove all the human specimens because of, like, ethical reasons and whatever. And
well, the biggest reason is because the man you're going to talk about in a minute, he had a surgery done, he had an unusual condition, and he decided he wanted to donate it, and he took his organ and donated it and signed the paperwork, right?
Yes.
Their issue is that because this museum opened over 100 years ago, their issue is that there was specimens in there that people did not consent to having in the museum.
Yes.
And these are very unusual things that you will never see again. Some just weird, like syphilis of the skull, for example. Like, you're never going to see tertiary syphilis in a skull, really. I mean, I don't want to say never, but it's not going to be something you're going to come across as commonly in this time period. And instead of giving a history lesson, because that's what it is, to say like, hey, doctors back in the day would just like grave rob these things, or they would just take these things when a person died and didn't ask their family if it was okay. And that's how it was done back in the 1800s. It's not okay now, but this is how it was done. We still want you to look at this. Instead of having like a history lesson so people could learn how medicine has evolved over the years, they decided to just hide it away in a closet and not let anybody look at it because it was disrespectful.
But isn't it more disrespectful to shove somebody's remains in a closet and let them deteriorate than keep taking care of them and just having a little plaque that's like, hey, because of the history of this museum, this specimen might not have been ethically sourced necessarily, but it's important that we learn from it. And there's so many ways to go about it.
It was just trending topic of the week. Then Harvard took out a human skin book they had, and this and it, and then it was like Smithsonian's going to take out all their human remains. Like it just was like a trending topic of the week for all of these snooty freaking people that are running these museums. And there's so many people that are against this, especially in medicine. I mean, whatever. I am, of course, but I just think that there's so many doctors, old museum curators, people that just learn from this kind of stuff. You think when you're teaching a doctor that you could just teach them everything by looking in a textbook, and you just can't. And you're just taking away another educational tool. I've taken so many physicians to this museum, and they just, and other healthcare professionals too, and they just, there's nothing like seeing it in person. It's just really great for education, and it's just really sad that these people have ownership of such a great collection that's no longer able to be seen.
So now, in the news this week, there are people that are alive that have donated their own specimens to the museum, and they are outraged by what's going on there, and they want them back.
Good. They should take them back.
Yeah.
They could give them to me. I'll show them to everybody that wants to see them and teach them all about it.
Because the purpose of donating them was to educate people, and then you're hiding this stuff away. Even these people who have signed the paperwork and done everything.
I am thinking about this guy in particular, right? He had a condition called acromegaly, which is a problem when there is too much growth hormone, and it could cause all of your body parts and your organs to get really large, right? He required a heart transplant, okay? A heart transplant is a hardcore surgery. You're having heart failure and going through that. Then you get on a list. Then you have to get this surgery. Then you might reject. There's all these things, right? You're in the hospital for a while after you get it done. He got that done, had the transplant done, went through the trouble of getting his explanted heart from the hospital to the museum, which is a lot of paperwork and stuff. You can't just take an organ from the hospital and donate it to a museum. There's a lot of phone calls, paperwork, transport, blah, blah, blah. And he went through all that because he wanted people to learn from his condition, from all the pain that he went through. And he thought like, hey, maybe there's someone like me out there that's suffering from this and wants to see it. Maybe there's a doctor that's going to come visit and see it and recognize this before it becomes a problem. Whatever the case is. So he does that. He goes again to the museum several times and films these videos with the curator to talk about his condition, which is awesome. It's like my book. It's like The best is talking to patients. Like, you see the pictures, but then talking to the patients that actually experienced it. It's just like the best well-rounded education you can get, especially for doctors who are taking care of people and went through all this trouble. And now he's like, oh, cool, you're going to fucking put it in a closet? I'll have it back. Thanks.
Yeah. And this article discusses another woman who donated her specimen as well, who talked to the new lady in charge, who is basically saying there's no difference between the donation of a human specimen or art. So it's nice to see that these people are having these, parts of their body.
If there's no difference, then put it on display.
Exactly, because you think everything at every art museum has been ethically sourced? Like, come on.
No.
It
hasn't. And if you really want to go down that hole, we might as well just close every great museum and display of anything that we have. Like, think about this, right? University of Penn's getting the same way with their archaeology museum, but then I'm like, they have all that Native American shit there. You think that was all ethically sourced? No, they probably stole it from the people it belonged to, right?
So
now that's not a problem, but you're gonna get rid of the mummies and stuff. Like, it's just fucking stupid.
So I would urge people to go in the gross room, because we actually did an interview last year with James Edmondson, who
I loved him.
He was incredible, but most of the episode was about this very topic, because he was in charge of a museum for decades and a really long time, and this was really disturbing to him.
And he wrote the book. The reason that I interviewed him is because he wrote the book Dissection, which is such a great book if you guys are into this stuff. It's a big photo book. You should still be able to get it on Amazon.
I'll link it in the website description.
Yeah, but it's a great book that shows medical students how they used to dissect bodies like a while ago. They're not really current pictures, and so he was one of the writers of that book. But yes, like Maria said, he was also kind of had a similar job being a curator, and how, I mean, it's offensive. It's honestly offensive. And this person that's running the museum now is probably not even involved with medicine at all, which just really infuriates me.
Well, it's more disrespectful, in my opinion, to take the things away where they're being properly cared for by people that are specialists in this and like devoting their lives. Imagine this is what James Edmondson said that really stuck out to me. He said, imagine spending your life preserving these items only for this new person to come in and take your life's work away and shove it in a closet.
Yeah, and I know for a fact, because I've seen the work that Anna did there at the museum, that these people are dedicated to this job.
She left. She doesn't work there anymore.
Yeah, I read that in the article, which really pisses me off too. But, I think about that too. Like, if all of these things, so they have like a back room with stuff that's like not in great condition, like everything can't be displayed because of certain reasons like that. But if those specimens, like let's say this guy's heart goes in the back room, who's taking care of it? Because those fluids need to be changed often. Like, there's a special way to handle it. They have specimens that are over 100 years old in a jar still, because there's been people that have loved the collection that have taken care of it so good for all of these years. And if it sits, I'm telling you right now, like the fluid will evaporate out of the jar and the thing will dry up, and it'll literally be trash. Like, you can't ever show anything with it. It'll be a dried piece of meat. And it's just really devastating.
No, it really is. So,
and for what?
I mean, we've been saying the whole time that this whole exercise is like completely ridiculous, and now to see that these people that have given their own pieces of their body to try to educate other people and like do something for a good cause, or like give it back to me, it's insane. And I agree with them 100%. Really, if I spent all the time, like you're saying, this guy donates his heart, right? And he's had to do all this paperwork and go through this whole thing to get it there, and then it's just like being shoved in the back of a closet, or I think they said it's like out on display right now, like, thanks, after I yelled at you, now you put it out, right? So
he should still take it back out of principle.
No, I would too.
The only thing I could hope is that nobody goes there anymore.
Yeah, and I would just...
And then someone else takes over, and it's like, ding dong, the witch is dead, and like, we'll start over again.
Well,
and
they
hopefully
should donate
it's not that much time.
They should take it back and donate it to an institution that's actually going to respect what they're doing. So it's disgusting.
No, they won't. That's the thing. I'm like, there's some museum out there that'll take the stuff. They won't do it, though. That's the thing. It's like, and it's some weird control thing that like it just goes well beyond what is on the surface, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Other death news.
All right, so there's been this like fear for a long time of like robots and AI taking over jobs. Were you ever concerned about it coming to the morgue?
No, but when I read about this, I was like, oh, this completely makes sense. Actually.
So the Massachusetts Medical Examiner Office has purchased a dog-like robot trying to assist with some of their autopsies because they get so many a year.
So when you go to the medical examiner's office, it's really just like anybody that dies that they don't know why they died, whether it's suspicious or not, goes to the medical examiner's office. So let's say, for example, they have a person that was found dead outside, right? And they don't know why they died. They start doing what's called the external exam. So they're looking at the outside of the body. And they take off the guy's shirt, and he has a big incision on his chest that makes it look like he had a previous heart surgery. And they do a quick toxicology, and it's all negative. Sometimes they're able to say, okay, just based upon like he has no trauma, there's nothing going on here. He has this heart history. He's not high on any kind of drugs or anything. We're going to call this a cardiovascular death. And the reason that they do that is because medical examiners' offices are notoriously short-staffed. And in fact, there is a shortage of forensic pathologists in the country in general. So they want to dedicate their time and energy towards people who need it, like people who were murdered or people that died in a horrible accident. So they need that investigative services more for that than for people that probably died for natural disease. Yeah. So they're saying that they do 4,700 a year external exams. That's a lot of bodies. I mean, if you split that up every day, it's a lot of bodies. And they're saying that this technology could help them have doctors kind of look at it over this robot and help them with the external exam. Maybe they wouldn't even have to bring them into the morgue. You just have to think about all the resources that are used in order to, you find a person dead, okay, then you have to bring them back to the morgue. Well, you have to pay an employee to do that. You have to pay an employee to take the pictures. You have to pay an employee to bring them back and lay them out and do the external exam again out in the morgue. And they're saying that even though this thing costs a lot of money for a robot, I think it was $269,725. It's a lot of money for anything, right?
Yeah.
But they're saying that they're paying double in overtime for all of this extra work. So than they did in years prior, which was it added up to be like $400,000 additional dollars in overtime money. So like right there, it kind of pays for itself if you're going to be able to prevent people from working so much. I think it's great in certain situations. And also another thing is like, let's say there's a situation where a person dies and they had some kind of an exposure to a chemical that a human shouldn't be around, or they're in a room where humans shouldn't be because it's not safe. That's why the person's dead. This is perfect that they could send this robot in to go examine the body or do whatever and not expose their personnel.
Yeah, I was thinking that's really good for that too. And I was reading that they also tried to use this in hospitals during like COVID and stuff to try to prevent some employees from getting infection. So that's definitely an interesting way to apply it.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's great.
Yeah. All right, on to questions of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram, we put a story up where you could ask whatever questions you want. So first is, how long do specimens typically last in formalin?
Well, we were just talking about that with the Mutter Museum, right? They could last a really long time. Like, let me pull out this guy again.
Oh my
Lucia's
God.
placenta. Well, this is actually, so I originally fixed it in formalin for a couple months and then I switched it over to alcohol. But as you could even see in my jar, the alcohol, so I did it maybe when she was born within the year. So the alcohol is starting to evaporate. It just does all the time. And the water and the alcohol looks a little grimy too. So I probably should take off the lid and clean it out and put fresh stuff in it, which is what the curators at these museums do all the time. They know how to take care of these specimens. So if you had something in an airtight thing with formalin, I mean, it could last years and years and years and years. And if you looked at it under the microscope, it would still look really crisp. But in these cases, it has to be changed out because of the evaporation. So I hope that helps with your question a little bit.
All right, next. What is your favorite organ?
Oh, that's a good one. My favorite organ to cut is the liver because it's just like lunch meat kind of. It just reminds me of like bologna or something. It just cuts very smooth and nice with a nice sharp knife. But I feel like my favorite organ system is the GI system. I like that, like the way it works is interesting to me. But so it just depends on like what do you mean? My favorite one to cut's a liver. My favorite one to look at is a heart, but my favorite one, the way it works, is the GI system. I kind of hate the brain. It's just a little too complicated and mushy for me. I'm just not really interested in the anatomy of it. It's kind of boring to me. I know a lot of people are interested in neurology and neuropathology. It's just kind of I'm just not that into it. Yeah.
Well, I'm triggered by the placenta because that summer you made me intern with you at the hospital. The first specimen you showed me was a placenta and I wanted to puke everywhere. So.
Yeah, but they're kind of amazing organs because they just form and they're temporary.
Yeah.
It's like you form this huge organ that's the size of like it's bigger than your spleen. It's huge. It's a big organ. You know what I mean? It's like the size of your stomach almost.
Yeah, I mean now as an
and
adult,
you form
I can
this,
appreciate
and then
it
and then it's disposable. It's like, yeah, we don't need you anymore. So yeah, that's why I took it home because I'm like, I formed that organ. I want it.
Well, maybe that's why some people are inclined to eat it. They're just so fascinated by it.
I never wanted to eat it. It looks like steakish when you cut it.
Oh my God.
When it's fresh. So it's just like, I don't know. That's where I draw the line.
All right, last question. What do we do for fun?
What's fun?
I like to go mini golfing or to the movies. I embroider as a hobby, which is fun, but sometimes could be stressful when I'm like making Louis this present last week that I'm feeling like I have to rush. But what about you?
Well, we go to the Phillies games a lot.
Yeah, the Phillies games are fun.
That's like our family, like, okay, turn it off for the night and go relax and do this as a family.
Yeah.
We do that. Then it sucks though when they're not playing, but they've been in the playoffs the past couple of years, which is good because then we get like another couple months of baseball, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I garden. It's like I'm not really that exciting of a person.
Yes.
I like to do activities with the kids. We go down the shore all the time in the summer too. So, and then in the winter, it's like we have to find other things to do, like go to the movies and stuff like that. But we don't do anything like mind blowing.
Just despite the thought that I don't go outside, I do go fishing sometimes with my husband. So I do like fishing. It is satisfying to do. So yeah, I mean, it's nothing crazy. I feel like the stuff most people do, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't do anything crazy.
We're really not exciting.
I'm not like, oh, I go out and get drunk and dance all night. Like, that's not happening. In fact, that's the worst thing that could ever happen. That would be like my worst nightmare. To really be out of the house past 9 o'clock is my worst nightmare at this point.
Yeah, I mean, last Saturday we had a pretty good day because we just had like no commitments that day for the first time in a long time. So we went fishing and then we came home and chilled for a little bit. And then we went mini golfing and we went to this new winery and just got a cheese board and like a glass of wine each. That was really good. I actually want to go there with you because the food was really good and they had a lot of gluten-free stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely like, I feel like I used to go out to dinner a lot more and try different foods, like a lot more before the pandemic. And now I'm just kind of like over it.
Yeah.
Which sucks because that used to be a huge thing that I used to do. And we try to do like different activities. Like we're going to go to this Chinese Lantern Fest. That's going to be pretty cool.
Oh, I thought you went last night.
I didn't feel like it.
Okay. I mean, it was pretty hot out yesterday too, so.
It's summer in Philly. It's hot every day.
Yeah. Well, don't forget to submit your stories for 6 shocking stories, and the email is stories@motherknowsdeath.com. They've started to roll in, and they're quite interesting, so we would love to hear your story.
Yeah, so if you have any kind of like crazy medical thing that's happened to you, and we did this a little bit with the book, getting submissions for the book. You don't have to have pictures, though. We could just talk about it on the podcast. But if you have pictures, we can make a post in the gross room, too, because pictures always just complete everything.
Well, that and, like, give us a little teaser in the subject line, you know? Like, I want to be shocked when I open the story and I start reading it. Be very descriptive. We love, like, no message is too long, in my opinion. We want all the details possible.
Yeah, and we'll write you back if we have any more questions about it. And then if you want us to say your name or whatever, we can kindly do that. Yeah. Or just if it's completely embarrassing and the last thing you want is your name attached to the story, then we don't have to do that.
Yeah, if you've already submitted, we won't read the names because, like, we didn't specify that the last time we were taking submissions. But if you want your name, you could say it, and then we'll figure out when we start doing those how we're going to go about that. But we're excited to hear your guys' stories, and we hope you have an awesome 4th of July.
Yeah. Have a nice 4th of July, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor, and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day, and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.